Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Anthony Broom and Chris Ballas on Thursday, June 26th. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and for all Michigan football, basketball, and recruiting coverage, recruiting really heating up right now, get all the latest. Head to the Wolverine.com. You can use the promo code UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1. That's going to get you through Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. We'll bring you the latest from that, fall camp updates heading into Michigan's 2025 season, Michigan basketball, so much more over at thewolverine.com. But June 26 means 65 days until Michigan football. 6-5.
Oh, there it is. Nice. Blake Corum. That's right, baby. What a great memory. I got to tell you, man, you guys, we've lived through the glory days of Michigan football. I don't know if we're ever going to see a better stretch than we did. And for those who can't see this, it's Blake Corum putting up the 65 for Zach Zinter after he went down against Ohio State. But that stretch, which was unbelievable. I know there were great stretches in the 70s, guys, and there were times that those teams got screwed out of going to bowl games and because of the tie-breaking procedures. But I don't think we will ever see, maybe in our lifetimes, and that's never is a long time, but I don't know that we'll ever see a stretch like that again.
Maybe not. And we've seen the good years. We've been through. I'm going to do a little show and tell thing here quick because I was just going through my office. I found the ticket stub, and I'll put it up to the camera here. It's my first ever Michigan football game, September 12th, 2009, Notre Dame. Now, that wasn't a good team. That was the second year of Rich Rod, but what a game. What a first game to be at. So we've seen.
You left early, right?
My friend stormed out of, and I don't know if he's watching this, but I won't forget. He stormed out when Notre Dame scored, and I followed him out of the stadium because I was 15 years old or 16. I didn't know where the hell I was. And as I'm passing through the gates to get back to the neighborhood, you hear the
yeah. I think there was still a minute and 50 seconds to go when they started their drive, Clay, or something like that.
It sounds right. It was quick. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not going to wear that one because I was a minor and I could not be unaccompanied. I'd never been to Ann Arbor. I'd never been to a Michigan game before. So. Yeah, but that was my first game, and I do have fond memories of that.
It was a great ending. We'll just fill you in. We'll spoil it for you. It was like one of the best.
Trust me, I've watched the ending a lot since I didn't see it.
Sorry you missed it, buddy. It was great. Anytime you beat Notre Dame, even in a crappy season, it's still fun.
Yeah, but so we've seen those types of years. We've seen, we were all at the Rose Bowl. We were all in Houston. We were all at. Who could ever forget where they were? When Michigan upset Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl last year as well. Not quite on par with some of those other moments, but we've seen a little bit of everything to this point, except I never saw a COVID game in person. So for what my money's worth, that year never happened.
You didn't miss anything. And there is a big asterisk by that. I know that, those teams weren't practicing. Those Michigan teams were not even practicing half the time. So, and neither were a lot of other teams. It was, some schools were practicing when they shouldn't have been, so on and so forth. That is a big asterisk year that in future seasons and future years, people will look back at and say, you're right, those don't count. So that's where I am.
The guy brings a ticket stub to the show, and I had to rain on the parade. I'm sorry about that, Anthony.
Hey. Yeah, that was not kind, but I'm not done with show and tell if we want to keep going. Actually,
I do think you should rip the end of that stub off, like just maybe 7/8 of it, keep the 7/8 and then throw the part that you missed in the trash. So honestly, the next generation is going to see these ticket stubs one day, be like, what a waste of paper. It's just on our phone now. Yeah.
But it's cool. I miss that hard copy, that hard evidence. I love
the hard copy, right?
I want to do a little more show and tell here real quick because Clayton and I were at the UM golf outing of Flint, or the UM Club of Greater Flint's golf outing the other day. And the Hardy Boys, shout out the Hardy Boys. I know they watch this. They sent along something for you, Chris.
Nice.
Because there was, auctions and whatnot. So
they didn't just send it.
They won this for you. It's a little skincare basket. You've got your little loofah right here.
And it's pink and white for people who can't see it.
Yeah. So you've got your pink rosé emulsed. Wow, that's a big word. Body butter. Nice. So that's there for you. You got your pink rose body scrubs. So listen, I know you're a beach guy, but
Perfect
it's
for me.
important to exfoliate and rehydrate your skin. And so that's here for you in my office whenever next time I see you, I'll make sure I'll bring it with me.
Are they
that is
subscribers, the Hardy Boys?
They are. They are. So we met them at the Pro Football Hall of Fame when we were on that trip with the football team.
Which
so
was
those were the
amazing.
guys that we talked to.
Love those guys
when we were there. So
yeah,
they sent that along for me to bequeath upon you, Chris.
Tell them thank you, and I won't take it personal. I must be too close to the camera or something, or getting a little older. So, but our producer Megan, I saw over there, she was like, "Ooh, that looks pretty interesting." So maybe that'll be a Christmas gift. I'll re-gift it.
We just want that summer glow of yours to extend into the fall.
So. I appreciate that. Yeah, I can sense the sincerity there. So that's awesome, though. I love those guys, and that's part of what makes this whole experience, running a site and doing these things, is meeting these people. And man, they're just the best. We have such a loyal following. I got to tell you, man, it's so much fun. And thanks, Hardy Boys. I appreciate that. I will use those, and I will tell you how it works.
So the story behind that is there was a silent auction with a bunch of different things set out, autographed basketballs and footballs and a Mikey Sainristil jersey and all sorts of things. And then there was that. It didn't really go with any of the Michigan stuff. And Jordan Hardy, Mr. Michigan, over on the fort or at the Wolverine.com was like, should I get something for Ballas? And we were like, well, this hasn't been bid on yet. And it was $25.
Classic.
And he bid 26. So he had the winning. We kept checking the paper like, well, no one's outbid him yet. No one wants this.
I love it.
There you go.
I want it. Absolutely. I can't wait. Thanks, Hardy Boys. You guys are awesome.
Absolutely. Let's get into our show. We have some NBA draft talk with Danny Wolf going to the Brooklyn Nets. We'll talk some Michigan basketball, some things we gleaned from that outing that Anthony mentioned, and a couple updates on revenue sharing from Warde Manuel as this is now in place heading towards July 1st. We'll start with Danny Wolf getting drafted number 27 overall by the Brooklyn Nets. He was in the green room on Wednesday night. I think one of the last guys to be picked that got the green room invite. There were some players who came on their own, sat in the stands, who got picked before him, which I don't think is unusual, but they showed him right before his pick, getting a little restless there with his family. And then sure enough, he gets called at number 27 to the Nets. His family reacts very emotionally. I think his brother has already become a meme on social media, but it was a cool moment. It wasn't a crazy slide or anything. You saw some mocks with him going in the 20s, but 27 to the Brooklyn Nets is where he ends up. They had 5 first-round picks, so the Nets actually passed on him 4 times, but they end up getting their guy there. And, it's I think a young team where he's going to get some touches. He's going to get to handle the basketball, whereas if he went to like a playoff team or something like that, then maybe he's standing to the corner and maybe not showing his full skill set, because I think he's at his best when he gets to kind of run the show a little bit. So it could be a good situation for him in a young team.
Yeah, and you know what? Just going in the first round, right? If he was going to go in the first round, that he was going to go, and he thought about it. He thought about coming back to Michigan, but he loves Michigan. There's no question about it. He had to go. And to me, where he is now and what he accomplished here, it feels like he was here for a long time, guys, right? More than just 1 year. You have some guys that come here for a year and they will be asterisks or forgotten men. Olivier Kamwa, unfortunately, in an 8-24 season and then getting hurt. Danny Wolf is going to go to the NBA as a Michigan man, even though he was at Yale for several years too. So, and I do think it's a great opportunity for him. This is a guy who is really, when he's shooting the ball with confidence, it has an unbelievable amount of potential at his size. We saw what he could do with the ball. That's what they want to do with Yaxel Lendeborg and maybe a little bit of Morez Johnson, if he can prove that he can do it this year. But I really think he's a really good fit for today's NBA. Not that I follow it a ton, just enough to know that he is kind of the prototype of a big man that you're looking for. So love this kid, loved covering him, happy for him and his family. Watching that got me a little emotional, guys, to be honest with you. Watching him celebrate with his family, and it always does. I remember Karis LeVert, back in the day, and going earlier, I think, than a lot of people thought he would. And the career that he's had, these guys, I cannot think, honestly, in the last 15 years of Michigan basketball, from Beeline through Juwan Howard, with maybe a couple of exceptions in that era, to now, of any guys that weren't just great fits for the Michigan culture. And Danny Wolf certainly was one of those guys.
Yeah, it's a good situation. I mean, not in terms of, being met with wins and losses early in an NBA career, but like Clayton said, he's going to have an opportunity to play. The Nets are in a complete and total rebuild. And, you have these 5 first-round picks where you just play them and see what happens. And it's like having lotto tickets. The more that you have, the more these scratch-offs that you have, the higher a chance that, 1 or 2 of them pan out. So hopefully he's one of them. He's a guy that, again, I thought he'd go a little bit earlier just because of what he can do at 7 feet tall. But, he was a bit of a unicorn for Michigan, but maybe not necessarily for the NBA. They have a handful of guys in the league who can do that now. But, you get to go to, for play, what did Jim Harbaugh used to say? The only way to get better at football is playing more football. Well, the only way to get better as a basketball player and as an NBA basketball player is having a chance to actually play. And it seems like Danny Wolf is going to have that. So, it's that first feather in the cap for Dusty May officially, even before he was officially drafted, what this staff was able to do with him is a big reason why Axel Lendeborg is here. And I assume a guy that we'll be talking about on this version of the show, the Thursday show after the Wednesday NBA draft next year, as someone who went in the first round and maybe has a chance to go a few picks earlier than Danny Wolf did. So excited for him, excited for what that means for, now Michigan can say, hey, we sent the number 27 overall pick, a 7-footer who had a guard skill set, to the NBA draft after just having 1 year with him. So it's a big deal for Danny, but it's also a big deal for the program. And couldn't be more excited for the guy. When we talked to him the night they lost to Auburn, he was, I won't say he was beside himself, but he was incredibly emotional because, one, he got to live out a dream playing a year at Michigan. He grew up a Michigan fan. And 2, that was kind of the realization that this 1 year ride was probably coming to an end. And they didn't want it to. That was a fun group that wanted to keep playing, but it wasn't in the cards. Excited for Danny, excited for Michigan basketball. And, I suspect, that's 12 first-round picks in the last 13 years. I suspect it will probably be at least 13 in 14 years when it comes to next year's draft.
Yeah, no doubt. That's 12 and 13. Really, that run is incredible. It leads all Big Ten teams in first-round picks over that span. Michigan now was 68 total draft picks, 32 first-rounders now. That's 6th among all schools, 2nd among all Big Ten schools, behind UCLA, which they have had 0 players drafted as a Big Ten school, but they have 43. If you want to, now compare them to current peers in that league. And this current run that they're on spans those 3 coaches that you mentioned, Chris, with the culture that they've had. They've also just developed and identified some talent. I think John Beilein, it was more some improbable guys that maybe you didn't see it, and then a year or 2 down the road, or even you didn't see it coming into a season. Next thing you know, a guy is in the first round. With him, Juwan Howard was able to get maybe a couple of more of those higher end recruits that were dead set on going to the NBA either way. Although Kobe Buffkin, McDonald's All-American, doesn't really play as a freshman, and then has a breakout sophomore year and ends up being the 15th pick to the Hawks. And then Dusty May, now with 1 year, a guy from Yale who didn't play much as a freshman, didn't really garner any athletic scholarships coming out of high school, has a pretty good season as a sophomore, puts him in a completely different role. And 1 year later, he's a first-round pick. So really impressive on Danny Wolf's front, to come from being kind of a late bloomer out of Illinois, really started to bloom when he played that summer with Team Israel a couple summers ago, and then just has steadily risen from there. So he's still got a lot of upside, I think. But Michigan's 12 first-round picks in this span: Jet Howard, Kobe Buffkin, Franz Wagner, Jordan Poole, Mo Wagner, DJ Wilson, Karis LeVert, Nick Stauskas, Mitch McGarry, Glenn Robinson, the 3rd or 2nd round, Trey Burke, and Tim Hardaway Jr. in that span since 2013. And this is kind of, if you look coming into a season, one of the more improbable ones. People were wondering if Danny and Vlad could play together coming into last season. I think that was fair. And now he ends up in the first round. I have it. I was going through this earlier. DJ Wilson, that was surprising coming into that season. He really broke out Karis LeVert, maybe not surprising going into that year, but if you would have gone 4 or 5 years before he was picked, when he was committed to Ohio under John Gross and didn't get the offer to come with him to Illinois when he got that job, that seemed pretty improbable. Jordan Poole, people had him as a second rounder, goes late first. I don't think that was that improbable. Jet Howard went earlier than expected too, but he was expected to be picked. But this is one of the, and Michigan has had a long history of doing this, developing players like this and letting them shine and playing a brand of basketball that allows them to get picked.
And I don't think that anybody had Nick Stauskas going as a lottery pick in year two.
Yeah.
So just constant development, player development. Dusty May, too. I got to tell you, I was talking to somebody yesterday who had spoken with him, and we put up some information in an Inside the Fort, too, from people who knew him and are close to him. There's literally not another coach in the country that I would rather have at Michigan right now. And this guy, in terms of being the jackhammer, his age, the way that he runs his program, the culture, everything else, he is a perfect fit, and he knew that. And there was a reason that he was keeping an eye on the Michigan job, because he understood his fit here. And that's what I love about this guy. But that's why his players love him too. And you see the kids that he recruits, and he always talks about it. Sometimes that's overblown, while we recruit good kids too. There is something to be said for that, as we saw, obviously, in the John Beilein years, and what you've seen from Dusty May in his short time here, and Danny Wolf fits the bill there. So this program is in as good a shape as it's been in a long, long time. And I say that with knowing that John Beilein is going to be a Naismith Hall of Famer at some point, and is already a college basketball Hall of Famer. So Dusty May is the perfect guy for Michigan basketball right now. Can't wait to see what they do this year. Everybody's like, well, then you worry about next year. I don't worry about anything with these guys. They have a budget that was middle of the pack in the Big Ten, according to some of the insiders that we spoke to who would actually know. Everybody's like, oh, Michigan had, spent more on their roster than anybody. That's just not true. There were just people that wanted to play for them, like Yaxel Lendeborg. They said recruited Michigan as much as Michigan recruited him, because they love playing for Dusty May. So I love Michigan basketball, and have for so many years, right up there with Michigan football. Guys, we are in the glory days of Michigan basketball and football. This is unbelievable that we get to cover this, and I feel blessed to do it.
It's a good spot to be in. And and to your point, Chris, what is next year's roster going to look like? They built a Sweet 6 team out of thin air last offseason. So you don't want to have that type of turnover every year. I get that, but I'm with you. I don't know if there's anyone else in the country in terms of acting with conviction, having a long-term sort of plan or goal in place than what they have in Dusty May. And that's going to come with pitfalls and challenges and setbacks here and there. But so far, they pretty much get whoever they want, and the guys that they think are going to be pretty good wind up being good. So incredibly exciting to be in that spot.
It kind of works both ways too. They have so many connections that they're very good at not only the talent evaluation piece, which you can see on film, but the character evaluation piece. And then guys that want to play for you, and then compared to the guys who don't, also kind of says something too about your own evaluation process. So it kind of works in both directions. So yeah, what is it going to look like a year from now? I would imagine, it's fair because there's uncertainty. That's always a driver of some concern. But there was that same type of concern, the day after they lose to Auburn, and they had to rebuild the entire front court, and then a couple days later, Trey Donaldson leaves, and guess what? You got a bunch of commitments. That makes you feel even better about what this team's going to be than than really you could have thought of coming out of that game, given what you were going to lose. So yeah, Michigan with more success in the draft. Second round is tonight, which is dumb, but Vlad Golden hoping to get picked. You see him in a lot of these 2-round mock drafts. I think 2 or 3 of them had him at 59. The last pick in the draft, there's not 60 this year. I think the Knicks lost their pick for some violation. Unfortunately for guys like Vlad, who would like to get picked here, and then saw him as high as 49 as well. So he could go anywhere in that window, and that would be cool to see Area 51 getting picked in the draft. Last thing on this, as I was saying, this somewhat unexpected, given Danny Wolf hadn't quite broken out to this level yet before he got to Michigan. But on October 20th of last year, someone on this show, Anthony Broom, texted Chris Castellani during a Michigan scrimmage that Danny Wolf was going to be a first-round pick. Anthony, kudos to you. Did you believe it was going to be this year?
Probably. Just because knowing how the NBA sort of draft timeline is, the longer you're in school, the more they tend to sort of look down on that. But I don't know. We watched him, from the baseline that night, and we watched a 7-foot guy playing like a guard, and I just felt like he was only going to get better from there, and he did. So I didn't know if that would ever see the light of day, or I don't even really. I remember saying it, but I wasn't sitting there going, when he was picked. Oh, there we go. That text I sent in October came to be.
Wait, I got a text from you saying, make sure this goes up on a podcast if this comes to fruition. You don't remember that?
No.
Okay,
you Venmo'd us. Yeah.
Exactly, $20. I had a nice.
That's right. That's right. Not
really. No, that's a great flex, and you saw it, and you could see it early. There's no question about it. I think a lot of Michigan fans were hopeful that he would stay for another year, but when guys are going to be first rounders, you have to go. Right. And Yaxel Lendeborg was waiting. Yaxel Lendeborg is a rare guy. He could have been in that position where Danny Wolf was, for example, but he wanted to play college basketball for Michigan at a high level 1 year before he went. And to me, that just oozes culture and everything that you're looking for. Right. And that's a leader. That's a guy that these guys have already taken to. Everything we've heard, guys, about the guys on campus. And the crazy part is Morez Johnson hasn't even been here, and he's going to be one of those glue guys too. I think this team is a legit Final Four national championship contender. I really do. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here and saying that, as long as they gel. But when we hear things like Trey McKinney was the best player on the floor a couple of days ago when they were playing pickup ball and in practices and stuff like that, that just goes to show you the talent level and the depth on this team. And the good news about that too is that they've got guys that are willing to wait a year and get their minutes, and then next year know that they're going to continue whatever the seniors and the team that they're part of does this year. So again, love it. Love where they are. And the crazy part is Dusty May never rests. He's going to be all over the place. He's going to be recruiting in Pennsylvania. In the next couple of days, he's going to Switzerland, where he's going to be watching his guys in the U19, and then he's going to be recruiting there too, from what we've heard. So this guy is a machine, and that's why you get so excited, man, about the future of Michigan basketball.
No doubt. And those games starting in a couple days. I was going to mention that. Morez Johnson, you can watch him on Saturday, 11:15 a.m. with Team USA on YouTube, all streamed. And then if you want to get up really early at 5:15 and watch Oscar Goodman and New Zealand play on Saturday morning, start your day off right. Have a cup of coffee or three and watch that. But they got some games. The New Zealand's in Group A, the U.S. is in Group D. I'm excited to watch some of those guys. And that's a great segue into our next segment, talking about what we learned at the U of M Club of Flint golf outing, which was a really cool event. They sent 4 representatives of the program. Dusty May was scheduled to be the featured guest, although he goes to the draft with Danny Wolf, attended some events leading into that, so wasn't able to make it. So he sends 4 of his best men, Kyle Church, Mike Boynton Jr., 2 assistant coaches, and then 2 of the better players on this team, Yaxel Lendeborg, in what I believe is his first public appearance as a Michigan Wolverine, and Namari Burnett, who Mike Boynton Jr. got emotional talking about the impact Namari Burnett has had. He said he's one of the best human beings he's ever met in 22 years of college coaching, talking about taking Trey McKinney under his wing, even though Trey is probably going to eat up some of his minutes this year, and how Will Cheddar was the primary recruiter last year for Danny Wolf because they didn't have any other players on the team. And Danny Wolf took his role, and he's fine with that. So Juwan Howard brought both those guys in. They decided to stay under Dusty May. You couldn't have asked for 2 better players. I'm not even talking on the floor here, to have come over, to have stayed on with the Dusty May era. But Yaxel Lendeborg was the tallest guy there, the main attraction. And they did a Q&A with Bruce Motti, who's a longtime SID at Michigan, and a lot to glean from it. The big men, as you mentioned, Chris, it's not just Morez Johnson who's not there, and Oscar Goodman leaving for Switzerland as well. He was at the beginning of summer workouts, but Adai Mara is still in Spain. Malik Cordell, the freshman who has enrolled at Michigan, still in Germany. They're awaiting F1 student visa appointments. Those are on pause right now by the U.S. State Department. Michigan remains confident that they will get those approved and they'll be here by the end of summer. But you're kind of playing without your big men right now in summer workouts, which is fine. And I know last year they didn't have the whole team together for the majority of summer workouts too. But as you said, still a lot of talent on the floor, but it would be nice to get those guys over here to, just to make sure you got them for this year, because the size is going to be a huge theme this year. That's going to be a big reason why they're successful.
Yeah, and we had to sit on the Cordell commitment for a month, until he officially got enrolled in school. And there were lots of people speculating, but we'd known for a long time. And he's a great pickup for long term. There's no question. If you watch him, this is an athlete. The guy's got good feet and good hands, and that's half the battle, right? When you're a big man. So he looks like he's been playing a lot more than the 3 or 4 years that he has. I think he was a handball player, if I'm not mistaken. I remember reading one of your or both of your articles on him about being a handball player. And I'm thinking, can you imagine playing handball at that size? But good for him. And, but that just goes to show his athleticism, right? And it's funny because you look for those 2-sport guys. Kelvin Russell's a guy, right, who is going to be committing here somewhere in the next week or so, that Lloyd Carr always used to say, and these guys used to tell me, I always look for guys that can excel in more than one sport. And those are the guys that generally have great success as football players for us. And so that's great news too for the program, for depth. Everybody worries about minutes, and it's like Dusty has told everybody that he's talked to, including us, it's a great problem to have, right? But you're going to find the best combinations, and when it comes crunch time, you're going to play your best combinations, and you need everybody bought in. And these guys are, and I think they're going to continue to be, because they understand that their turn's coming again for a program that's going to be competing on a national level as long as they're here. So that's what I love again about this program. That's what I loved about them under Beeline, and I'm excited to see these guys in action. I can't wait to see the next person that Anthony Broom texts and says, this guy is a first-round pick. Book it, and you'll get your flowers on the next podcast.
I mean, for every take like that I've had, I also texted friends back in 2014 that I thought Zach Irvin would be a better player than Nick Stauskas would. So you take the hits with the misses.
Injury.
So,
he
had some bad breaks.
Yeah, he did.
He did, but look at the NBA draft results.
We're trying to boost you up here, teammate. Come on.
I'm trying to stay humble. My ego can't handle all this.
All
this praise. The thing we should note with the visa thing, like that's gonna happen. It's just more of a when, not an if. They're working on, they've got contacts in Washington. They're able to sort of back channel things to expedite some of that. So anyone that freaks out and wants to draw some sort of conclusion on all that, like, they're pretty confident it's going to happen. It's just more of a when, not if. You'd love to have those guys there right now, but when you're dealing with international guys, that's part of it at the moment. That's part of the math. Mike Boynton was very, again, and this was an alumni club event. So it's basically a great event, by the way. What I say from here on isn't disparaging these types of things in any way, shape, or form, but they're kind of like, it's sort of pep rally, right? Like, you're getting your donors and your alums fired up, and everyone's there having a good time. But Mike Boynton was pretty comfortable saying that despite him being, he was the head coach of a team that had Cade Cunningham on it, he thinks that this has a chance to be the most talented group of guys that they've ever assembled, or that he's ever coached, assembled in the aggregate. And that's exciting to have that sort of conviction about a team, on June, it was June 23rd, I think it was, when we were there. That's pretty impressive. And, again, we've seen good Michigan teams on paper in the past. You think back to that team that had Caleb Houston and Musa Diabate on it, and those types of teams. But the mood around this program is just so incredibly high at the moment. And the fact that, you had Namari Burnett at this point, he's heading into his 3rd year with the program. He is a Michigan guy. Like, he is what they're going to sell to guys out of the transfer portal. Look what Namari Burnett did. He was kind of bounced around his first few years, dealt with some injuries, came here, and now he's heading into his third year as a major contributor. And I'll say this too, Yaxel Lendeborg, incredibly funny guy, incredibly charismatic guy, and a very nice guy as well. So he's a fit. You get a sense that chemistry is already there, if not developing. And it was just a good day at the office when you get to be around a bunch of smiling, happy people that are excited for Michigan basketball. I mean, there's no disappointment that there wasn't any football coaches or representation there. Now they do swap it out every year or so, they say, but folks there were fired up to be there. They knew who these guys were, and they know what the expectations are.
No doubt. Yeah, and Yaxel, I mean, he's a guy that's already embracing all this, and Amari Burnett has really helped him do that. And I think that when you saw Yaxel interact with all these guys, it felt like he has already been here for more than a month, and he hasn't. So I think he was a great fit in that regard too, Anthony. The other thing that, and I did want to mention the Mike Boynton part. I mean, that was pretty incredible. He's been around some talented teams. But the other thing is, they were asked this by a fan. What did they take from the NBA Finals and the best defensive team in the league winning the championship in Oklahoma City? And they took a lot. I mean, this staff watches a lot of different levels of basketball and tries to learn from it. And he said Kyle Church said that they're trying to take a lot of what OKC does defensively, the deflections. They led the league in points off of turnovers, being disruptive defensively, having good rim protection. Chet Holmgren was not very good offensively in the finals, but he was incredible on defense. Michigan has some guys with that type of size. Daimara is going to be one of the tallest players in the country next year at 7'3". He said that, while Vlad and Danny were great and they had great size, they weren't great rim protectors. They feel like they have that this year. And he said they have a chance to be, quote, significantly better defensively next year than last season. And they finished 12th in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency. I would say that they're probably going to finish better than that. And at least the efficiency, the efficiency rating will be higher. You can't really predict really what every other team in the country is going to do, but that's kind of scary because defense was their best trait last season. The offense was a little up and down and didn't get going as much. But I think they're going to be better on offense too, which is, again, a little bit scary.
And how good are these assistant coaches, guys, when you talk to them? And again, I go back to John Beeline's staff and a lot of the guys that he had. These guys are great teachers of the game. These guys are great fits. And Dusty May really did his homework there too. So, but yeah, it is a scary thought with the length they have and the depth they have to keep coming at you in waves, right? That's what really led to, I'll bring up Michigan State last year, their depth and the way that they could really, in the second halves of games, because they were fresh and they were sending waves of guys at you, stay maybe a step ahead of you in crunch time. And I think that's going to be something that Michigan does well this year. So the rim protection thing excites me because, yeah, Vlad was not that. Yeah, he blocked some shots with his size, but when it comes to rim protection, man, it's going to be hard to score on this team. You've got athleticism on the perimeter. You've got size at the rim. So a lot of teams are going to have to score mid-range, I guess. It's going to be fascinating to watch, to see how they defend, and if they stick to their they want to guard. They want their wings, for example, even Oscar Goodman, to be able to guard 1 through 4 is what Dusty told me a month and a half ago. Is that realistic? I don't know. In fact, one of the things he said, hey, if there were a guy in the portal that was the fastest guy end to end in the country, I'd pick him up and just tell Oscar Goodman, go shadow him and follow him around on the floor for every practice to get better at that. So they aren't planning on changing their philosophy, I know, in that respect. And I think they have the personnel to do it. So they need to be a better shooting team. I think they've got some shooters. I think Winters Grady is going to be a Nick Stauskas freshman type role in that respect. You can put him in a corner and really spread the floor a little bit and ask him to knock down some shots, even though he can do more than that. We didn't see Nick do a ton of that in his freshman year. And I even asked Nick about Winters, and he said, yeah, I think I did a little bit more off the dribble than he's going to be doing in year 1. one. At the same time, I can certainly see the similarities. So Trey McKinney's a better shooter than a lot of people realize. So they are going to have some options there. And it's going to be, guys, I love Michigan football. I do. I cannot wait for the start of Michigan basketball season. And I haven't been this excited for Michigan basketball in a long, long time.
I don't have much more to add than that. I don't recall what else was brought up there. I think
Over
we
under
pretty much
12
covered it.
for defensive efficiency.
What's that?
Over or under finishing 12th in defensive efficiency next year?
I'll say, well, so the under would be higher. They finished higher than that, right?
Yeah, better. I guess it's hard to.
Yeah.
I think they'll be better for sure.
Yeah. Which is going to be exciting. Very exciting. They will check a lot of boxes next season. And Mike Boynton joked at one point, like, do we get the, like, what do you think, the outlook is on this team? He said, do we get the visas? And he said, no, we're going to get the visas. But, that speaks to the point that those big guys, and more so Mara than Cordell this year, are having that size, like, it's hard to get that much size on a roster. And they looked at it. Akeem Miskadeen was on with Brian Bush this week on his podcast, and he mentioned how when they studied all the teams that were successful last season, especially Florida, who he said we hope to play them at the end of the year, they had a really deep front court. They didn't just have, he didn't say this, but two guys maybe who, when those two guys were on the floor, Wolf and Golden last year, Michigan, every mark was, pretty high. But when one of them had to leave the floor, there was a huge drop off. They want to have more depth. They feel like they have it. And the top teams had that last year with that much size in the front court. So Michigan is just getting closer and closer to the teams that were on that level in the past. Last thing, Warde Manuel sharing some updates, kind of a Q&A with fans online this week. Nothing groundbreaking, although he shares that the sports that will receive revenue sharing now that that's implemented are football and basketball, some funding for volleyball and ice hockey. No mention of baseball or any of the other non-revenue programs there. He says, of course, states the obvious that football leads our revenue generation, carries a large portion of the weight for the financial health of the department. And it mentions this. I know people have asked about this throughout time, but they remain committed to keeping all 29 sports they have in place. So whether they add advertising, whether they don't, whether they explore more of these concerts in different ways they can add revenue, that's all going to be determined. But I think at the end of the day, Michigan's always going to use the maximum amount that they can on revenue sharing and probably still be able to keep, as many sports as anybody because of just what this department is, how much they bring in through having the big house and everything else.
And I understand not wanting gaudy advertising all over the big house, right? But I think if you get one or two sponsors and, not putting Meyer on the uniform or something like that, but if you get one or two sponsors that you can put on the big board, it's even temporary when you're flashing it up or leaving it up on the big board during games and stuff like that and get millions of dollars for it, then you do it, right? Everything's changed. There is no traditionalist anymore, if we're being honest, right? Kids are getting paid to play. NIL has changed the game. And no matter what the NCAA says about, over $600, you have to clear it through a clearinghouse or something. I don't think anybody expects that to stand, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Now the kids are making their money. And so to me, that's going to be the next logical step. And I think, as long as you put it on the scoreboards, maybe put Abso-Pure on the, on the goalpost pad or something like that, or whatever. It's not going to bug me as long as it's not gaudy, as long as it's not on the field. And I know there will be some pushback from that. But I'm an older guy too. So, I was one of those guys that said, don't you ever put anything on my beautiful big house lawn, so we'll see. And, but it's coming, guys. I really believe that. So I think you're going to see $4 million. In fact, I know you're going to see $4 million of the revenue sharing go to basketball, the vast majority going to football, and then the rest going to the sports that Clay mentioned.
Yeah, I do think that we do need to start wrapping our heads around the fact that there might be some sort of small sponsor on the field at some point. There might be some kind of, people freaked out when, again, not going to making comments on the brand one way or another, but I think DTE had some signage up for the spring game, which is pretty normal. That's happened at least the last few years. People weren't very happy about that, but I think that might become a little more prevalent moving forward. And it seems like with stuff like this, and certainly I hope they never touch the uniforms. I hope there's not some kind of decal on the helmet. But it does seem like once the initial outcry around that sort of goes away, like at least, the Red Wings put a patch on their jersey. The Tigers have, I think, a Meyer patch on their jersey or something. As long as you said, Chris, like it's not gaudy, I think a lot of people sort of just forget about it and just kind of becomes what it is at a certain point. I hope it doesn't happen, but I do think that whenever some sort of change happens, there's going to be some outcry. There are going to be a lot of people that are pissed off, but then they'll start playing the games and then that'll be the end of it. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, that uniform to me is as pristine and as clean looking as any in college sports, maybe in all of sports, honestly. I hope they don't touch it. I think at some point it's probably going to happen, though.
I do think the Wolverine field at Michigan Stadium has a nice ring to it, and you wouldn't have to change the logo at midfield all that much if we're being honest. So yeah. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying, you never know.
There might be a lot of people that fight that from happening, though.
Well, they can, kiss my butt.
All I'll say is there are some preliminary conversations. There's an exploration process, just to use these words that these executives use to kind of keep everything vague and whatever. Right. But there are some talks, and
that's all we'll say.
Wolverine.com could be on the field. Could be the Wolverine Court. We would name it after Beeline, but
John and Kathleen Beeline Court at sponsored by the Wolverine.com at Chrysler Center. Has a nice ring to it.
The Wolverine.com arena. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and Warde Manuel made it very clear too in this Q&A, just to close it out, that NIL collectives are still going to be very important. And there was a list someone, fan asked, or maybe multiple, and they consolidated it into one question: how can I support these efforts? Of course, maybe they added that question in themselves to kind of nudge fans. Hey, this is how you can support. There were like 4 or 5 bullet points. One of them was contribute to the Champion Circle Collective, which I think is still going to be a major, major part in the success of these programs. And you're already seeing that as soon as a guy commits. Michigan's really hot on the recruiting trail right now in football. As soon as a guy commits, a Champion Circle has a graphic ready and a tweet, and they're like, yes, sir. Like, they were a part of all this too. So whether or not the clearinghouse stands, either way, it's going to be a big piece of this. So NIL still remaining. And as Bruce Motti said at the panel discussion the other day, anyone who says they know how this is going to go is lying. And I think that's facts. But I think that's our show for today. Again, 5 days until Michigan football. If you are excited for the season, give us a like on the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, head to thewolverine.com, use the promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for just $1, and we'll see everyone next time.